Hi there, it's Mark. We've got another Nik Collection 9 video for... Sorry, you didn't see what happened just before I started recording. We've got another Nik Collection 9 video for you today. We've done a few already, and in one of them, I said you'd be blown away with their depth mask. In fact, their masking in general. This is Emily. She's a dancer. We shot this outside the gates at Glasshouse. And as I run my cursor through, you can see how brilliantly this is picking out all the various depths there are in this picture. Now this can lead to some very accurate and or creative editing. So today we're going to run through the other masking options, the object selection, control lines, control points, area selection and so on. And I'm going to show you, and I'm going to show you some tips and tricks about how to use them, refine them and tune them. It won't be the be all end all of everything masking. We will build through the masks as we do future videos looking at day-to-day practical edits and exploiting this software. But for now, we're going to try and bunch all of the masking into one video. Now, before we get going, I would normally tell you now about the discount code I've got from DxO. They give me this software for free to play with. I was already a paid up member of the Nik Collection family. I've loved it for ages. And so when version 9 came along and I was offered it, I snapped the hand off. Happy to play with something I already like and also to show you what its features are. Now my discount code is MAH Studio. I'll put it on the screen somewhere over there right now. However, if you're watching this video before the 28th of June 26, you can get 20% off Nik Collection, Photo Lab, Film Pack, Pure Raw and other members of the DxO software suite. It's a Father's Day promotion. You don't have to be a father to use it. You don't even have to be male to use it. You don't have to be human to use it. That code, which I'll put in the notes and I'll also put on screen, MAH Studio _ FD for Father's Day 26, my age. And yeah, so you can use that. I think we'll just get cracking. Now we've got that out of the way, we'll roll our sleeves up, we'll jump into Nik Collection, we'll go through these pictures. This is Kate from a cosplay shoot as Black Cat at Oosburn in Newcastle. This is a sad traffic cone in a subway. Don't ask but bear with. This is Harley from a cosplay shoot in Heaton Park in Newcastle, and this is the building, 55 Degrees building in Swan House at Newcastle. Very geometric, because one of the masks is quite geometric. See, I even put some thought into this. Let's get myself a coffee, let's play the titles, and let's get cracking. See you very shortly, probably 7 seconds to be precise. So welcome to the other side of the titles, and the observant of you may realise that I look a bit different now, because time has passed since I did that introduction. I had to go out on a photo shoot, but now I'm back. I've edited those pictures, they've been sent off to my client, and I'm back on doing this video. What I forgot to tell you, and the reason why I'm currently still on the screen, is that the images we're using today are all raw files, and they're all in a zip file, and that zip file is on my website. And there's a link to download them directly from my website, no forms, no fuss, down below in the video notes. If you want to go and get them, you can press pause and we play along. The other thing I would like to say before we get cracking with our first picture of the 55 Degrees building on Swan House Roundabout is that this is a longer form video. I hummed and hawed over whether I should split up the various masks into shorter bite-sized videos, but thought there's enough common points between them that the continuity would be lost if I didn't do it as one video. Now, I also didn't want to say, here's a picture, press this, do that, slide this slider, put 30 in there, move that one down -2 and carry on. Because that just shows you how to follow along a set of instructions with the picture on my screen. I'd far rather we work through this a little bit more organically, and I told you a little bit more about what we are doing and throw in some tips and tricks at the same time. So consequently, this might be a long video. However, I'll put chapter markers in down in the notes so you can jump to any one chapter, and the chapters will be labeled per mask. So that should allow you to track back and forward. Also allow you to press pause, go and have a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, come back the next day, whatever. It's there as a resource. It's a longer form. Chapter markers help us out. And with that, I'll say no more to lengthen this video, and we'll just get cracking on this. It's just a matter of me disappearing off screen, which I'll do now. Finally, he's gone, so we get this to ourselves. 55 degrees building picture in Silver Efex. Quick reminder that we have presets. Neutral is where it loads, and you can hover over and search and go through other presets, and when you hover over them, the main screen actually updates to tell you what it looks like, and from there you can then go on to edit. We are not doing presets today, we are going straight into a filter. So what I'm going to do is just add a simple basic adjustment filter, and already you can see there's quite a rich range of sliders we have available for adjusting the various tonal qualities and contrasts and such in this picture. But we're not interested in that just yet. We're going to dive into local adjustments. So add a local adjustment. We're going to choose object selection first. Option O if you're into shortcuts, or Alt O if you're on a PC for object selection. Very easy to remember the shortcuts for masking. Objects is O, area selection A, control point is P, and so on. You're looking at Polygon, aren't you? All right, well, Polygon, there we go. So object selection, let's click on that to enable it. And now it's a case of just going onto the picture and the objects are picked out. This wall, that block up there, including wrapping around the corner, that five, but not both together because they're clearly separate objects. We'll come back to that in a second. Over here, up in the rooftops. Now notice sometimes you have to move around to expand or contract what it is you want to select. The wall, just the graffiti, those boxes, the little tile on the box here, that white pavement there, the round pavement here, the grass, it's all just very easy. Once you click on one, the selection is made, and you can feather that to make a softer edge. We'll come back to some of that in a minute, but now you've got these adjustments, so we'll brighten it just because we have actually selected it. Okay, now the dot shows you where you've actually clicked to make the selection. Now I can't remember whether the default is to have the antenna on or the antenna off. What's the antenna? I hear you ask. Well, that's the antenna, and you can switch it off and on by this little button down here. The antenna has got a series of sliders: brightness, contrast, structure. Note there are the same sliders as what we have over here. So if you don't like the antenna, switch it off and just use these over here. But if you prefer to be in the mix, actually on your picture, sliding around where you've actually made your selection, then antennas are probably for you. One departure from default is my color of mask. I choose my overlay setting to be this horrible magenta color simply because, and this doesn't apply to Silver Efex, it applies to color photos simply because it's less natural a color. There's more likely to be a red, a yellow, a green or a blue in a normal picture than there is magenta. So I tend to use magenta. However, as we will see in a moment, black and white is a much better way of visualizing precision in your masks. We'll be using that in the future pictures. But over here is where you do that. Or guess what? M, shortcuts. So you can just don't have to come down here, you can just go M, and M will cycle through the various masks that we have, and you just leave it where you want. So that is object selection. It is largely very good. Sometimes a little bit creeps in, so you have to move your cursor around a little bit more, but essentially that's it. If you want to target something, it's an object, you can do that. I did mention that the 55s were two separate objects, as indeed they are. Well, let's now just click on that, click on the waste bin to get rid of it. I leave these prompts. I can check here, which you can, do not show again, but then that doesn't help me when I'm showing explanatory videos, so I will leave that, but I'll delete now. Local adjustments, area selection. Now area selection, you can actually draw a grid and it'll find the object within that. So if we put our mask back on a very precise selection. Switch it off again, and while we've got something selected, yes, we can actually adjust it. Let's darken it, shall we, just for want of something to do, to bring it down, to blend it almost to what's on the wall there, just to prove what our selection was. So that would be an area mask. While we're on the subject, you can keep adding masks. Let's add another area selection, and guess what, let's go and try that one. You've got more than one mask now. Let's brighten that one. And to keep track of masks, you can always double click on them and label them. Lower 55, upper 55, or whatever. Easy to manage. Now we've done that though, we're going to throw them away. Delete and delete. And move on to our third mask, which we are going to look at control polygon. It's the first of our U points and the only one we're going to do on this picture. There are some times where you have a shape which doesn't necessarily get picked out with an object or an area, in which case you can define it yourself. So let's say we wanted to do this doorway. We could in fact go click at the various points, and let's leave out that bit and just do clicking around it, and we've now made our selection. Now within that selection we can then further tune this. Now this is common to all of the U point masks, and that is luminance and chrominance, or luminosity and color, brightness and color. We have just defined an area within which these two sliders govern what is then actually selected. So let's go over to our black and white mask with our M key, and we can see more clearly what was in there. Now by deciding what luminosity we want to select, we can really refine that together with chrominance. But hang on, this is a black and white film, so how would color work? Because there is underlying color in it. But you can see how with these two you can make it very precise. Isn't it a bit fuzzy, Mark? Yep, let's bring the feathering down. If this was something softer, we might purposely want to feather it to actually blend the transition in, but for now we keep it quite precise, and what we've got there is a selection of the parts of that doorway and reflection. Let's switch the mask off, and now let's use that to brighten it. So we were able to preclude those pictures you can see inside because we were working on a luminosity value within a mask that was defined with the control polygon. And hopefully that makes sense. We will be coming back to using these two sliders to refine other U-point masks in the pictures that are to follow, but for now the only difference here was it was a polygon and it allowed us to click, click, click and draw our particular shapes. With that said, we move on to our next picture, which I will load in Color Efex. So here we are in Color Efex with Kate, and we have our presets over here. We can hover over a thumbnail, see what it looks like, click to apply it, but we're looking at the mechanics of masking here, so I'm going to choose a filter again, and just something fairly innocuous for now, like tonal contrast. Okay, add local adjustments. We're going to look at the control point. Click on control point and we'll click somewhere in Kate's hair, such as there. Let's zoom in to see what's going on. Okay, so you can see that our control point, central point, has a circle around it. We can actually change the size of that by grabbing the lugs and bringing them in from either direction. You can make it bigger, smaller, you can make it more elliptical. You can click and hold underneath and you can see the arrow changes to side, and we can rotate the ellipse, and of course you can move them around. But you can see from the magenta it's made a selection. The selection isn't the whole circle. This is important. The circle is not the mask. The circle is the boundary within which the mask is applied. The mask is based on a combination of the luminance and chrominance of our selected point within the shape. Let's go to the black and white mask by pressing our M key, and we can see this better. If I now move my luminance to the right, see how more is deselected. If I move it to the left, more is selected. In fact, if I move it completely left, it's a mess. And it's way outside the circle. So what's going on with that? I've just said it was a boundary. The mask is only within. That's because diffusion is right at 100%. If I bring this all the way down, you can see now how that overzealous, horrible mask is now being bound by the shape of the control point. Let's bring this back again to there. Now, what about a face? I'm just interested in a hair now. Well, a face has got colour in it. I clicked on a white piece, so it's largely going to match a hair. If I move the chrominance over, we'll start to deselect the skin tones. And so now between those two, and possibly just move the point a little bit more around, see if there's a better point there. Now we've got a really good selection of her hair. Let's switch off the mask with an M, and let's just add a few little highlights, extra highlights into her hair. It's only a subtle change, and we switch off and on, and you can see the highlights in her hair. Let's do something with her lips now. So let's put another tonal contrast in. Let's come over and add a local adjustment, and let's choose another control point. Click on her lips. No need for it to be this big, so let's just bring it all the way down. Pop over to black and white mode, which is my preferred mask for control points. And you can see that's already a very good selection. Can we improve on it? Well, let's have a look down here at the luminosity and move it to the left. And let's move the chrominance. There you go, a really good selection of her lips. M to go back to our normal view, and this time let's change the saturation. We can either take saturation out of her lips, or we can bump it up to make her lips very red indeed. So that is how you use control points. You click a part of the picture. The size of the circle or ellipse is the boundary within which the mask applies, and your mask is governed by your selection of luminosity and colour. Okay, with that said, we move on to the next picture, and I'll put a couple more pictures of Kate at the end of the video together with her links to her social media accounts should you want to go and follow her. So we are in ANALOG Efex now with our solitary lonely traffic cone kicked over in a subway by the 55 Degrees building. That is it in the background. In fact, we've got the same layout with a series of presets which you can hover over, and the center picture will show you what that looks like, and beneath that you've got filters. We've got a basic adjustment on just to give us access to the local adjustments. And remember, this is the mechanics of the masking. We're not necessarily interested in the edit itself. And we are up to control line. And whereas control point gives us a circle with or an ellipse within which the mask doesn't go outside of, but that is not itself the mask, the same is true of control line. The control line, if we decide to bring one down from the top and put it there, for example, then our mask is everything above that line that fits in with the luminosity and chrominance at the point we clicked. So let's just darken that a little bit just to see it in action, and delete. You can, with control line, come up, you can come from the sides, you can, same with the other masks, you can click on the point and move it along. Let's click over to black and white with our M key. Now remember, it's based on the luminosity under the point, which is why now where we are, if you remember what our picture looks like, that's the lightest part of the picture. So it is only choosing like colors and like brightnesses from that point that exist between, in this case, the left of the picture coming into the point and then graduated off. We can actually change that gradient, or we can extend it out. We can also, of course, move this around. We could have come in from the other direction. We can sweep it round. We could have a top down if we were doing something with a skyline, for example. Or we could have come, or could have been coming from bottom up. Either way, it doesn't matter. The principle is it's a boundary for a mask, and what is masked, what is selected, is based on the luminosity and the chrominance value underneath the selection point. If we come over here, we see those, and if we alter those as we saw in the previous examples, we can arrive at the mask that we want. So that's a control line. Let's very quickly now have a look at the color and luminosity on their own. So we'll add a color mask. This is probably the easiest to understand. We click on a color. There you go. It's now highlighted everything in that picture based on that color. But we can still adjust it. That color is in between these goalposts, and there's a feather on either side. So if I slowly increase the feather, you can see more and more is masked. If I bring it in, we're getting tighter and tighter, not to the cone, that's inconsequential, to the color, which just happens to be that cone. If we spread it all the way out, because most pixels have got red in them somewhere, it's starting to show you those. So you've got some sort of feathering going on, and you can also start to slide this through different colors. Or indeed, you can choose a color to start with. But once you've got that, you can then make your adjustments. Delete that. And the luminance on its own. And we'll do an easy one. We'll just click in there. I've clicked on the lightest part of the picture, and as you would have expected, all that is currently selected are the highlights. But again, we've got this goalpost. We can actually start to move around and change the tonal area, the luminance area within which we want to select. And once we've got that set, again, you can feather it to choose what it is you want. So I'll just leave it like there for the moment, press M to get rid of the mask, and we'll darken that. There you go. That just leaves us one more in terms of the mechanics of masking, and then we'll put some masks and we'll do an edit on a picture of Harley, which is coming up next. So let's look at depth mask. No surprising on what depth mask does. You saw it in the intro, you've seen it on previous videos. Had you watched them? I hope you have. If not, go and check them out. What are you doing? Grab yourself a cup of tea. Once we enter the picture, we get an indication of the depth at that point, and as we move our cursor up, you can see the mask follows through. We'll get it just on the cone before it goes too far behind, and we'll select, and I'm going to brighten that to give it a bit more of a halo around where the cone is. And that is it. That is the basic mechanics. But again, with depth, you have got these goalposts. You can actually choose to widen that depth. Let's go to black and white just to show that. You can widen that depth. You can feather it more. You can make it far more condensed. You can slide the whole goalposts back and forward through the picture. And if you look at that now, that represented just what you saw before with the magenta. Okay. So you can set things in a number of ways, and any one of those can be inverted. So let's just bring back our M, and we'll just click on invert just to remind ourselves of that. It changes it round and back again. That is it for the mechanics of masking. Let's get Harley on the screen. Let's do an edit and then just play some pictures out to end this particular video. All right, so here is Harley in Color Efex. I'm not a fan of the green, so I'm actually going to put a preset on this time. There's an autumnal one called Fall, which I rather like. Gone past it, there it is, and it comprises of the following filters: the Indian Summer, Skylight filter, and Film Grain. You can play with these to your heart's content. I rather like what they're doing. I want to make Harley pop a bit more, so let's do that. But first, a word about what we've been doing. In future videos, when we look at using these tools and actually doing some practical edits, we will look at a picture, we'll decide what we want to do, what is our creative vision for that picture, and then we will use the presets, the filters, the various tools and masks to achieve that. Here we've come about it from the other direction, so not necessarily creative edits. Here we've used pictures in order to demonstrate the mechanics of the local adjustments. Which is why I've kept things fairly simple. I've always just used more or less tonal changes, and we'll be using those again in this picture too, because that's the lesser important part than learning the mechanics of it. That said, let's go and add a tonal filter to this. Tonal contrast, in it goes. What I want to do here is I want to only have that on Harley. If I switch this off and on, it makes a pop on Harley, as you can see, but also the rest of the picture. So let's isolate it by adding a local adjustment. And in this case, from what we've learned, area selection is probably the better one to use. So I'll just click, drag and drop, and it should highlight all of Harley, which it has. And now if we switch it off and on, you can see that pop is purely on Harley. It gives a lovely rim light down here where the sunlight was coming past the bark of the tree. Okay, let's make her hair and eyes a little bit more prevalent. So I'm going to zoom in to probably about 200%, and we're going to add another tonal contrast. And in that tonal contrast, we are going to put on a control point, and I'm going to click it on her eye. I'm going to shift over to black and white by pressing the M key, and then alter the luminance and chrominance to get a good selection of the eye. There we go. Let's zoom out a little bit more, because I now need the easy way to get rid of the rest of the stuff is just to close this up, which we shall. And if I zoom back in, you will see now that is a very good selection of her iris. So switch it off, M, and in here, now that we've got this filter applied to our tonal contrast, we lift the shadows a bit, and that'll make her eye pop a bit more, and possibly a little bit more saturation in there as well. So if we watch her eye before and after, we've done that. Let's zoom out a little bit further, and we'll put another control point on her hair. So let's choose another tonal contrast in there. We'll add a local adjustment, we put a control point, we'll click it in her hair, we'll bring this in, and let's M for our black and white, and let's see what we can do to get the hair. Luminosity to the right, chrominance to the left. Actually, let's do it that way around. There we go, that's not too bad. M to switch it off. We've got quite a lot of diffusion on it, so it actually blends into other areas, which is quite fine. And let's put a bit more saturation in the hair, and lift it as well with a bit, lift the shadows a little bit as well. Okay, before and after, switch it off and switch it on. Let's zoom back out, and the whole picture before and after, compare, off, on. What else would I do with this? Well, I would probably crop this, but that is by the by. That is a combination edit with a few things on, and that's all I've got for you. In future episodes of going through Nik Collection, and indeed going through Photolab, we'll have specific pictures with a goal to achieve, and we will edit to arrive at that goal. For now, mechanics is over. I'm going to ask you to click on the subscribe button if you've enjoyed what you've seen and want to stay tuned for further episodes of Nik Collection and Photolab and Film Pack and so on, or indeed my Lightroom and Photoshop and Affinity and other videos too. Give it a like if you think it warrants it. Don't forget to check out discount codes. Don't forget to check out the free downloads and trials you can have anyway from DxO to make sure you're comfortable with them, and then come back for my discount codes. I'll play the titles, and at the back in the titles there's a little gallery of Kate and Harley to finish off. Bye for now.